Hello, there we are. We are here now. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing as well as one can. I guess we should introduce ourselves.
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Ryan Meuth. I am one of the instructors for CSE 110, one of the developers. We've been working on it for many years at this point, and this is just the latest iteration. I'm an associate teaching professor at Arizona State University in the Fulton Schools of Engineering, and I've been doing this for 14 years now, and trying to teach as many students as possible how to program and everything like that. How are you, Sabrina? Tell us
Thank
about
you.
yourself.
Yeah, I am significantly less cool, less interesting,
Hardly.
but my name is Sabrina. You might recognize me as the host for Study Hall Intro to Programming that you might have seen on youtube.com. Don't know why I added the URL. Everything is apps nowadays. You might also recognize me from the YouTube channel Answer in Progress, which is the reason I'm wearing this EEG on my head right now. I'm working on a video project where I'm scanning my brain for the next 2 weeks, and it's left me with the weirdest crown of all time.
Amazing. I can't wait.
Anyway,
So, I think the first thing we wanted to do today was sort of talk about our experiences in programming and how you got to sort of learn programming, what you do with it in your day-to-day life, and how it sort of applies now.
yeah. Well, I guess this is a fun segue. I'll probably have a shorter story compared to you, but basically, I was in university, just minding my own business, studying math. And then at some point, I think that there was just like a weird overlap in the way that my program was developed that somebody pointed out that I can actually just take one or two courses to get a little computer science minor situation. So I decided, yeah, let's learn how to bubble sort for the first time. Like 22 years old, about to graduate. Let's do it. So that's what I did. And I think I took that course alongside a machine learning course, really was operating on two very different ends of the technical spectrum. I was learning just hello world on one side and like, oh, this is what a GAN is. Can you do a GAN now? So it was a bit of an absurd experience, but overall, I think kind of being tossed into the fire was fun because it showed me just how many things are can possibly be done with programming from like from all angles. And nowadays, I'm not a professional programmer. I'm a YouTuber. Derogatory, but I do find a way to like work it in as part of my toolkit whenever I'm approaching a video. So, for example, I'm working on one about like how can productivity techniques and potentially meditation impact your ability to stay focused? Or how does that impact your brain as a whole? So I figured out how to get this thing working, scanning my brain for so many hours of the day. It is not comfortable. If it looks uncomfortable, you're right. And now I'm just able, I feel more comfortable processing that data and understanding the results. And it's just really cool to have this as something that I can do.
Mhm.
But that was boring. What about you, Ryan?
It's
Tell me
hardly
your
boring.
life story.
No, I appreciate how you incorporate programming into your videos and stuff like that in Answer in Progress. I always think it's fascinating to see how you sort of incorporate it from not a this is something more than a professional discipline. It's a thing that you can actually apply in a lot of different places, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not a programmer either. I'm not a professional programmer. I've only ever done it on like internships and stuff like that as full time. But I do teach programming, and I kind of stumbled into it. I set out to build robots, and you can see I've got some toy robots and some real robots on my shelf, and as well as
Yeah.
Alf is up there, and stuff like that. But I set out to build robots, and I went into a computer engineering program and got my undergraduate and PhD in that, mostly because I was bad at job hunting and didn't really know how to apply to things. So I'm like, I'll just keep doing school because I enjoyed that. I was also bad at research. So I did my PhD with literally the bare minimum. And I was great. I loved building things, and I loved like solving problems and stuff like that. And I studied sort of artificial intelligence and neural networks and stuff like that while I was in school. And I loved making stuff smart and making it sort of solve problems. But I hated the writing about it. I hated the publishing process. I hated all of that stuff. So I did literally as little as I could of that, which is really the metric by which faculty are evaluated most of the time. And so when I got out of my PhD program, the what's next was I've got too many degrees and not enough experience to get an industry job. I'm not a good enough researcher to get a research job. And I've met my wife, and now we're moving to Phoenix, and we're in the middle of a recession at the time. And ASU had just laid off a bunch of faculty. So I got a teaching only job at a small private university here, and fell in love with teaching and teaching students and things like that. And I've been doing that for a long time. But my programming, I've been teaching programming in a lot of different forms, but I still do programming for myself to help manage my classes. If you guys are watching, the emails that I sent out to with your grade updates and stuff like that are part of a script that I wrote in the back end that pulls a bunch of information together and then sends out literally thousands of emails. Something that I wouldn't be able to do if I wasn't able to sort of apply and integrate all of these pieces together. And I'm not using anything that concept wise is not in the course that you're learning, that you're taking right now. So there's a lot of things you can do with programming that are not get a job doing programming.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that a kind of common thread between us, other than being very self-deprecating, um, if we can do it, so can you.
Yeah,
But it's also the fact that we are still able to use a lot of programming in our lives without it being the whole thing, and it shows just how flexible of a tool it can be.
yeah.
Um, Kind of like on a similar note, this morning I'm posting a video soon. I usually order captions, but I clicked the wrong button and I ordered a transcript instead, which is great. Shows all the words that I said, not time-stamped in any way. And I was
Mm,
like, "Oh no, how do I do this?" Um, so I figured out how to time audio to video and how to like cut down the very long paragraphs upon paragraphs of that transcript into like shorter caption sized chunks. And I used like a very similar concepts that we covered in the course as well. And it's just useful. It's useful being able to do something that you can manually do, or you could spend the same amount of time automating it for one time only.
it's a well, I mean, that's a much more interesting challenge and use of your brain time than the
Hmm.
like boring cutting and pasting and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
it's a I think like for stuff like that, I 100% have one shot things that took me longer to develop than if I'd just done it manually. But um it's also like what keeps me engaged in my job and stuff like that. If it was all the boring stuff, then I would never do
Yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also, like, I guess you can always have the project on hand in case I click the wrong button again
yeah,
and I order a transcript instead of some captions.
yeah.
So it all works out.
You just need to use it one more time for it to pay off, and it'll be great, right?
Oh, the amount of times that I've used that logic. Oh boy.
Totally.
I think that some people sent some questions in advance,
Yes,
and we can go ahead and
yes.
answer some of them.
That sounds great.
I
Uh,
will be playing the role of Jess Wagstrom today. Hello,
Fabulous.
this is
Hello,
me.
Jess. Nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So what would be the best thing to study after this course? What is Java used for in professional settings?
Awesome. The best thing to study after this course, there's a lot of different ways you can go, I think, and it depends on sort of what you want to do. If you want to be a professional programmer, there's not a specific like next class in study hall that we have planned yet, or anything that's sort of like free or low risk, like we have for a lot of these models. The next class in our degree programs that we offer at ASU are things object-oriented programming and data structures. Those are the next sort of steps, and those go from the fundamentals of the programming language to starting to think about how we organize and structure programming solutions in a way that's scalable and sort of the common patterns for dealing with really large problems, and how you organize the information and then how you process that information in efficient ways. That's really the core of like computer science beyond whatever the language features are. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can enroll in a online or in-person program, either at ASU or your local community college or anything like that. They're pretty similar across the board. Lots of people do boot camps, which are effective as well. They're kind of risky. They're very intense and expensive, but the payoff is usually pretty good because that can lead to a professional career. Things like that. The Java using what is Java used for in a professional setting? Java is used for mainly enterprise software development. So it's usually tools that are used internally for organizations to sort of run their business, as well as sometimes it's in video games. The famous example is Minecraft is developed in Java. The mobile apps for Android are primarily developed in Java, though it goes under different names and stuff like that, but it's still Java under the hood. Stuff like that. So there's a lot of places where Java is used, and I think right now it's the number 3 programming language used by the industry as a whole, behind now Python, which is used a lot in artificial intelligence and sort of gluing systems together, and C and C++, which is what the hardware really runs on at the lowest level. But being in the top 3 gets you a lot.
Nice. Yeah. It's the logic fundamentally is also very translatable across different programming languages, just thinking about how you're organizing information and how you're relating it to one another. Um, but yeah, cool. And you talked about video game development. Are are there going to be video game? Is there a video game course coming up in study hall? Question mark. Could be a sad answer.
I hope so. That would be awesome. We have a note that says there's a fast guide about majoring in video game development that's on the study hall site, which would be useful. As one of my internships, I was lucky enough to work at a artificial intelligence startup, and our goal was, one of the things that I was there to do was to work with robots and artificial intelligence. And
Very
I was
cool.
teaching this little 6-legged insect thing to walk. And I had a physical robot, and it would be like, take a few steps and evaluate whether it did a good job or not, and then it would try again, right? I did that for 2 weeks. So I was sitting there watching and babysitting this thing for 2 weeks. It was terrible, but it worked, right? And it was enough to say, okay, this is functional. They paid me for 2 weeks to do this. And then they're like, but it's absolutely not scalable, right? So we're like, okay, how do we do this? So let's build a simulation environment. This is before, this is in the early 2000s. So it was not easy to just sort of pull one off the shelf and work with it. So we built a 3D simulation environment with physics and all that kind of stuff from the ground up. And I used every bit of everything that I learned. I learned all of my engineering, the physics, linear algebra, a bunch of calculus, all kinds of stuff to build this sort of game engine. And it was one of the most satisfying like programming experiences I've had. One of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was really cool at the end.
I'm very impressed because I got to benefit like 10 plus years down the line with like Unity game engine, and I think OpenAI has a gym environment that you can use to train agents as well.
Yeah.
And I only needed to care about the physics basically, and I still beefed it. I tried to get this little guy to learn how to do parkour, just get from one end to a 3D map gym to the other end. And I was like, yeah, this is easy. I set up the nodes, I set it up all within this game engine that was already made for me. And he just fell over. He just loved falling over. And a fun form of frustration.
Yeah,
But it is wild how much the technology has improved to make it easier and easier for people who are in the beginning stages of things to be able to do really cool things.
yeah, totally. I
Nice.
did want to address, I see there's a question from Chris about what other paths might be available to learn the basics to land an entry-level programming job. Um, this is something where it doesn't have to be an academic program, right? A lot of, like, Sabrina, you took a couple of classes, but you've far exceeded sort of the scope of those classes, right? And where did you get sort of that information? How did you learn to go beyond just those first few that you talked about taking?
Yeah, I think that I did a lot of like project-oriented learning. So I had a very specific thing I wanted to do, and then I trolled through YouTube videos, Stack Overflow, random blog posts. Like there's a lot of Medium articles that guide you through similar projects, and then you can take things from them and put them together to kind of create your own Frankenstein course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I think that's a totally valid thing. And even I tell my students, like, the degree is just a piece of paper that says you've got the fundamentals, but to differentiate yourself in the market and to get actually that job, you have to say, I am, this is my specific experience, and this is how it applies to the job that I'm going towards, right?
Hmm.
You don't need the the piece of paper most of the time, right? You can build a set of experiences and a set of projects and a set of, like, engineering stories or problem solving stories or programming stories that lead to, say, I've got these qualifications because I built this website that trains me on, was it spelling, or is that an app that you
I
did?
did a little game app that's like helping my spelling, but I also made a website to help me memorize pi.
That was the one. Yeah, that was the one that I was thinking of, right? But there's a lot of stuff involved in that, right? Because
Hmm.
there's web development, there's databases, there's HTML and CSS, and pulling all of those pieces together is demonstrates that you know those things, right? So going in with a portfolio of projects and then pushing the boundaries of your knowledge is mostly what people that are looking for these entry level positions are looking for, is that sort of self-motivated, I'm applying this stuff, I'm not afraid to jump into something that I don't know about, because that's most of programming.
Hmm.
Is, if somebody has already done it and you can just pull it off at GitHub and deploy it for your application, they're not going to employ you to do that. They're going to employ you to look at a problem, dive into it, learn something new to make it work, and then move on to the next thing. And I think that's the core of, how do you start a programming career. A degree helps. It's not necessary.
Hmm. Yeah. Although learning those foundational skills always so useful. I'm man, every single time I'm like, why is this taking so long to run? run a program, and I'm like, oh, I should have considered things better. I should have built this
Yeah,
out better. I should have focused on the foundation sometimes.
it comes with experience, right?
For sure. Oh, this is something that I'm also curious about. But Kaylin asks, is there an association between which industry you work in and which programming languages are best to learn? Because I
Mm,
do a lot of like data science and machine learning stuff, so I do use a lot of Python. But
yeah.
that might be because I will never remember the semicolon. It's it's so bad.
I just traded the semicolon for the very sensitive indenting, though. So
That's
it's
true.
kind of,
You know, I tried Julia once for one of my classes, and the instructor was like, "Try using emojis as your variable names," and I hated it. But yeah, is there like, if you're trying to do one thing, what programming language should you learn, or is it kind of up in the air?
it's there are things that are super general. Java is super general, right? So that's kind of one of the reasons why we teach Java in this class, and it's deployed in a lot of different areas, and it has all of the fundamentals that you can apply to other languages like we were talking about before. Python, like you said, is great for artificial intelligence and data science. It's a systems language, and it's usually it's interpreted, so it's very interactive and easy to debug, and you can sort of poke around in it as it's running, and that's really cool. And it also is a great, I think of it as a glue language. So if you need to connect a bunch of different pieces, there's usually a library or an API that's like pull from a Google spreadsheet and then send an email through Microsoft Outlook and stuff like that, right? Which makes it really easy to connect things. C and C++ are low-level system languages. So like the operating system, the hardware drivers for your video card, stuff like that are written in C and C++. It gives you a lot of control. It makes you super dangerous because you can, like, one mistake in the structure and logic of your program, you can crash the whole system, stuff like that. But you have low-level control over the machine, and you can make it basically do anything that it's capable of doing at that level. For web programming, JavaScript, which is a totally different language than Java, it has no relation to each other, is the language of the web. It's what runs in the browser itself, as well as sort of the web stack is like database, learning how to use and interact with the database. JavaScript can be used on both the front end and the back end. Sometimes it's Java on the back end. Sometimes it's C or C++ on the back end, stuff like that. So there's, a variety of them. Those are the big areas right now, and you can kind of focus your efforts on what area you want to go in.
Yeah. And again, like at some point, once it's kind of like when you're the avatar, right? There are these four elements, and at some point, you kind of learn how to master them all and apply them and find those weird intersections. And switching between languages is a lot of just like syntax errors, and then
Yeah.
just scrolling up to where the line says that you did something wrong, and you're like, okay, whatever. It's frustrating, but it's not like an end of the world thing. It's just annoying.
Yeah. I tell my students too that once you learn one language, the second language is a lot easier, because when you're learning the first language, you're learning the syntax, which is how you type it in. You're learning the programming concepts, which are like, this is what a variable means and does. This is what an if statement is. This is what a loop is. This is what a class is. Stuff like that. And that's all very new. And then you're also learning how to break a problem down into pieces and then attack those with a program that you write. And that's very hard. So that first language, that first programming class, is the hardest one. But once you get that, and if you're switching to a different language, you're going from Java to Python, it's all of those same concepts are there. It's just how you type it in, right? So you're still applying the hard things, which are, what are the programming concepts and what are the problem solving steps. You're just doing it with different syntax, right?
Yeah. It also makes it so much easier to know what to Google when you run into a problem in that second language. Because a lot of the time you're like, there must be a way to do this. I
Right.
just don't know how to write it.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, now we have a question from Anaka, who's asking me, when did my obsession with lasagna start? And here's the thing. I like lasagna. Who doesn't? Do you like lasagna, Ryan?
I love lasagna.
It's delicious. Garfield was really onto something. But you mentioned that fact lightly in a writer's room. You say, why don't we throw the word lasagna in here? Maybe episode 4, maybe episode 5, can't quite remember. And suddenly everything becomes about lasagna. And you find yourself 25-ish episodes in, wearing a shirt that was handmade moments before with the word lasagna on it. And you have to eat a cold lasagna before saying goodbye. Did this series strengthen my obsession with lasagna? Maybe. Certainly I have a deeper tie to it now emotionally. But also, we should get you a lasagna shirt, Ryan.
I want one very badly. Now
Yeah.
after seeing your apparent passion for lasagna in the video series, I'm ready. We get ASU branded
There we
lasagna
go.
sun
We
devil
could be the
shirts.
first. I don't know if we are the first, but we could be potentially the first study hall series with hyper specific merch.
Yeah. Awesome. We had talked a
Cool.
little bit about this already, but what are some examples of practical programming, Java or otherwise, you implemented in your life or work outside of corporate programming?
This
You have
is
another one?
this. I feel like hmm. How about you start? Because I've been throwing in
Okay.
every silly project I've worked on.
Okay. Cool. My I've got two, and they're both pet related, right? And they're both
Okay.
pets doing bad things related. So the first one was I had he's since passed, but we had a dog, and we have cats as well. So keeping the dog out of the litter box was a critical thing to happen, right? That needed to happen.
Mhm.
And we were not able to monitor it or anything like that. And I didn't want to buy. We had tried some things, right? You can get these like little spray cans and stuff like that. But the dog is big. He's like 60 pounds or something like that, and the cats are small. And I built a thing that is like one of those Mission Impossible laser line break things.
Yeah.
And so there's a little laser on one side and a little detector on the other, and it's set at the dog's body level, but the cats can go under it without any trouble. So it would let the cats through, but it wouldn't let the dog through. So that was like my hardware and robotics and a little bit of programming and stuff like that. And it would just set off a little beeper when that happened. And then the second one was the cats were getting on our kitchen counters at night.
Hmm.
So I wanted to train something. I wanted to build a little robot that would detect specifically cats, because sometimes I will get up and get a drink of water and I don't want it to scare me. So I built a little AI robot that uh, looks for cats at night,
Hmm.
and then sends a like beeps and sends a little air can off and stuff like that. And
God.
that had mixed results, because I had to train a artificial intelligence model. I had to collect a ridiculous amount of nighttime cat pictures and stuff like that. But it ended up functioning pretty well. And then the cats lost interest in nighttime counter snacks. So
Well, that was the goal, wasn't it?
yeah, totally.
Oh, maybe okay, I don't think I have a single project that is more interesting than what you said there, because now I'm
You
so deeply tempted to start training an AI on my cat specifically, who's a very generic looking cat. If you Google standard issue cat, that is in fact what my cat looks like. So access to great training data already. To just
awesome.
get the couch.
Yeah,
Gotta keep the cat away from the couch. The sides of the couch. Front
yeah,
top of the couch, fine. Whatever. Sides
yeah.
of the couch. It's impossible. Nothing can
I'll
stop an animal.
I'll put my project on GitHub, and you can maybe make it better, because it was not good.
Oh. Image recognition is tough. Were you using like a
Yeah.
Raspberry Pi to just keep it running?
I was using a Jetson Nano. We had
Ooh.
it's not kind of like a Raspberry Pi. It's a little bit bigger form factor, but it's
Hmm.
got a GPU built into it, so it can do some pretty
Whoa.
hoss processing,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, but once I was mainly using it for training, because
Hmm.
I didn't have a local machine that was hoss enough, and then like a Raspberry Pi should be able to run the model for feed forward.
Hmm. Very
Yeah.
cool. In terms of projects that I have implemented in my life, well, oh my God, have we hit every single thing that I've ever done? There was that time I tried. No, listen, I'm not an interesting person, I guess.
You had the automated resume
Ah,
robot.
right. Yeah, I did. Wow, you remember the things I've done better than I have. A little bit. So large language models were not what they were today. They they were significantly worse. So at one point, I decided that I wanted to try and automate making a resume for myself. It would just take the job posting, take my current experience, use some like libraries to help with matching and like processing what things are similar to one another, and then spit out a formatted resume. I did that for a video. It was fun. I got to look into like ATS um, things. I forgot what the word was, that like a lot of larger companies going through these third-party services will tend to like scan your resume for matching keywords just to see if you even like fit the bill, because they weirdly want incredibly customized resumes for their job
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah, totally.
So I did like a lot of rephrasing and all of that stuff. I think I used like some sort of baby version of like GPT-2.
Mm.
Um, and the project was interesting. It was fun. It's so much easier nowadays. Just get the GPT-4 API running and all that stuff. Oh, and I also was playing around with I did a lot of playing around with GPT, mainly because I accidentally put in a whole bunch of credits into an OpenAI account. And then I was like, well, I might as well use them. I severely overestimated the cost of an API call. That's what happened. Um, so then I got GPT to spit out some rom-com scripts because I was
Mm.
looking at the state of rom-coms, did some basic data analysis, and that was I love me some data science. Pulled a bunch of scripts from old rom-coms to extract themes. Did some work with the movie database. Pulled those things out. Basically, I was trying to justify an argument I'd had with my friends that rom-coms are bad now. It's not a rare argument, but I'm just like, listen, guys. Like there was an era that was great. Hugh Grant, Sandra Bullock, all everywhere. And then Judd Apatow came into the scene, and this was almost entirely an argument that I was trying to make about how Judd Apatow ruined rom-coms. Sorry, if Judd Apatow is taking this specific class and is watching this specific live stream. Um, so yeah, and then based off that, I was able to analyze like a lot of the reviews and the box office revenue for movies. But the bright side was I also interviewed an entertainment journalist who did a lot of deep dive research and interviews on rom-coms and learned that they are making a bit of a comeback by pulling more from novels and less
Mm.
from like original scripts. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway I got from that was once again how you can use programming to understand a problem in more depth and then combine it with some more qualitative research and like understanding of the world. Like the numbers are great. They can show you a lot. They can like show signs of a pattern, or they can show you the limitations of a certain technology. Um, but then you can also supplement that with like interviews and the real world. And it was fun. It was a fun experiment.
That's awesome.
So yeah, the
So
rom com was awful though. Chat GPT.
it might be exactly what the Hallmark Channel needs. So you never know.
There we go. Well, they certainly are producing a lot of hot garbage. It's wonderful. Cool. Oh,
So I
interesting.
think our next one is imagine if programming languages were characters in a hit TV series. Which one would be the star shining bright in both school and work?
Ooh. Well, with the nature of AI being the hottest topic nowadays, almost certainly Python is like the jock, right?
Yeah,
Python has to be it.
yeah, totally. They're prom queen, king? Hmm?
They're
Yeah,
at the
for
prom.
sure.
I
They're at the
think
prom.
that
They're on the stage.
is Java just playing D&D in a back room, just trying their best.
Yeah, probably. 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 I mean, like everybody sees JavaScript, right? Everybody sees JavaScript. It's sort of everywhere. Um, C and C++, they're the weird kids that you are. They're the goth kids, I think. Seems like C++ are the goth kids because they're out of the limelight. They work in the shadows.
But they're very well
Nobody sees it,
connected.
but they're very well connected. That is also very true.
The secret
Um,
linchpin for the entire social hierarchy
yeah,
of our
yeah,
Riverside of programming
yeah,
languages. Riverdale,
totally.
sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Was Flash a
Yeah,
programming language? I just remember that it died at some point in the mid 2000s.
yeah, Adobe killed it. I think it was a programming language. It was kind of a
Right?
scripting language, and well,
Hmm.
it was GUI based, right? Because you could build interactions and stuff like that.
What made the
And
internet
and
beautiful.
yes, it did. And man, that was a wild time. Um, and so there's a concept called Turing complete, right? And a system can be called Turing complete if you can implement decisions and repetition, right? And you
Hmm.
can basically, after that point, you can make anything happen that is possible with a computer.
Hmm.
Flash was Turing complete, though it was very specific to graphics and interaction and stuff like that. The I think like weird stuff like there's a Google search is Turing complete, even though it's like real basic. People have proven all kinds of weird things are Turing complete.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff like that that's out there.
Neat.
Um,
Is there a very specific and niche programming language? Like just somebody who never speaks up in class, but is there.
oh man, oh there's so many of these. Okay, so um, the there's Ada, which is the military programming language. So a lot of
Hmm.
systems are built in Ada. Um, there's oh man, like the oldest guy in the room, the Hello Fellow Kids dude
Yeah.
is COBOL, which is still around, and it's running a lot of our like financial infrastructure, um,
Oh.
which is really scary because we're losing
Yeah.
COBOL programmers. They're all retiring.
Oh,
So
that's
hey
good.
everybody, if you want a job, study COBOL and then go work for Edward Jones because they are hiring people to they need a new generation of COBOL programmers. Um, and then there's these weird like hyper specific languages that are made for like healthcare situations.
Mm.
I forget what they're called. What the one that I know of is. I see it. I read. There's a blog that is all about like nightmare programming and IT challenges, and it shows up every once in a while. But
Mm.
these companies will write their own language for their
Mhm.
specific system, and it sort of ties people into their system. And those are all over the place. So
Nice. Well, that was an adventure.
yeah,
Learned something terrifying about our financial institutions. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, right.
It feels like I feel like how I imagine people felt about Y2K just in that moment.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. You should. I think you should. Yeah. So the last
Um,
COBOL programmer will retire, and it'll all come falling
wonderful.
down.
Oh, Oliver has a question for you, Ryan, and it's how can you engage a student or an individual to be interested in the field of programming?
Ooh, um, it's mostly about like programming itself is a means to an end, right?
Mhm.
I like programming because of what I can do with it, right? Because of what it allows me to do. I this machine that is sitting in front of me is expensive and insanely powerful, right? It can do things that are already are sort of given to us by other programmers. So you can download a program to do a thing, right? But if you really want to take advantage of this thing that you've invested your time and money on, and it's sitting in front of you and it's idle most of the time, learning to program allows you to solve problems that somebody else hasn't solved for you yet, right? You rather than waiting for someone to write an app, you can write your own app, you can write
Mhm.
your own thing, and that opens so many doors to if you're going into an industry, making your job easier. It opens creative avenues that you can do like amazing digital art. You can do amazing processes and interactions and games and expression and all kinds of stuff. It's a tool to be productive, creative, financially independent. There's a lot of different things you can go with, ways you can go with it, and there's a lot of neat things that you can do with it. And I think it's different in a lot than a lot of other disciplines because it's so cross-disciplinary. You can
Yeah.
work in any field and do a little bit of programming and make your job better and make yourself more productive and be the star of your workplace.
Yeah, I think that when I was starting to try and approach coding, because I actually, my dad is a programmer, and he tried to get me to get into coding when I was younger, and I just couldn't figure it out because he was always like, "You need to figure out a project to work on, and that's how you'll learn really quickly." But I always felt daunted because I didn't know what a programming project was.
Yeah.
Um, it's really wacky, but like the two approaches that I found worked is one, there's a lot of repetition. If you find yourself just doing something repeatedly and you hate it, there's definitely a way that you could program your way out of that. And then the other thing is just like you want a very specific thing to happen, whether or not it's like a calculator or an MP3 player, or my next pet project is just going to make a very hyper specific version of Jeopardy for me and my friends to play at home. And it's things that can be as silly as that, and it doesn't need to be hyper functional. It just needs to be something that gets you started. Um, but yeah.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. No, I 100% agree. Having a project focus or a career goal, those are great
Mhm.
things to do. And like art and expression and stuff like that are other ways to do it too.
Yeah, I think
Um,
this relates to like pretty interesting question that somebody asked, which is like, should you take generative AI slash prompt engineering courses simultaneously with learning programming languages? Because we're seeing like a lot of art coming out of AI and generative AI. What would you say to that?
I 100% think you should. The prompt engineering and things like that right now, the whole concept of prompt engineering is about getting a machine, getting a artificial intelligence, a large language model to produce something that you want off of a prompt, right? And it's about working around the limitations of the system. These are going to change rapidly as artificial intelligence develops. And this relates to another question we got from Juma about how is AI like Devin going to change the field of programming, and should we be worried and things like that. Um, the two parts are interrelated, right? Um, AI is really good at basic programming tasks and stuff that like you're learning in this class and intro programming classes, but it's terrible at large scale problem solving. We are
Mhm.
great. Once you learn the fundamentals, you're great at large scale problem solving. So what I see as the sort of future of programming careers and a lot of careers in general is AI is your assistant, it is your apprentice, and can do the grunt work, right? Or it can do um, the first draft of something, and then it's up to you to evaluate whether this is acceptable or does it actually meet the need or does it actually do what you want it to, and then you can extend it or revise it or integrate it into a larger problem
Mhm.
and things like that. I think preparing for that in terms of using these tools as much as you can, getting used to what their limitations are and when they're wrong because they're wrong a lot, um, and things like that is super important. How have
Yeah.
you used, like you talked about old versions of GPT? How do you use AI as like a partner in your life?
Yeah. Um, so in a similar way, like I totally agree that you should use it. I think there's a very big temptation to just kind of ignore AI because it is wrong a lot of the times. Like there's a lot of hype around it. But it's important to developing better systems and having people who are knowledgeable about them. You need to be the person to use it. Like if you're a programmer, if you're interested in programming, this is exactly where your interest should be. The way that I use it that I've found now useful is figuring out related terms to search when I don't know
Mm,
what to search for. Because I think the internet is such a vast place. I don't want ChatGPT to give me answers. I want it to give me related concepts. It's kind of like when you're on a Wikipedia page and you scroll down to the bottom and find all of these other terms. I use it basically for that. I did try using it recently for trying to just extrapolate the points on a graph that had a very clear axis. Right now, I was just like, I don't want to. There are ways to do this, but I can just basically Apple screen time data is not exportable to CSV. It's only a visual. So I was like,
Oh, wow.
okay, we've got Gemini, we've got GPT-4. Like certainly these things should be able to read where this bar is on this graph and tell me the data point there. Awful. It's ridiculously bad. It's like it's guessing where bars are where there aren't even bars. And I spent so long trying to figure out how to get it to read this. Like I tried a bunch of different prompts. I even tried to use some more of my API calls. I put way too much money inside that OpenAI account. It's fine. And it still didn't work. And then after I lost like 2 hours of my life to that, I did just open up Excel and then look at the graph and then punch some numbers in. Your brain is so good at so many things that you take for granted, and you should appreciate that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
totally.
it was so much
That-
easier.
No, totally. And that's a great example of things that are like so rare, it's not in their training set, right? So the thing doesn't have a general knowledge. It's just trained on everything on the internet. And that's a thing. Usually people don't go backwards from the graph to the data, right?
Mhm.
So there's probably like 5 examples of that on the internet as a whole, and it didn't know what to do with it when you asked it to do that. So
Yeah.
that's a fantastic example of highlighting the weaknesses. So I think we're at our time, and Sabrina, I would love to know where everybody can find you and what you're doing next and things like that.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, y'all can find me on the Study Hall YouTube channel where you can learn some intro to programming. You can learn about some rats and lasagna. That's all you get. I think that the next programming course starts on May 14th. Although I might let you repeat that, Ryan. I feel like I took everything. I, on the other hand, can also be found at I on the same hand can be found at Answer in Progress, where I'm making YouTube videos. I'm actually about to release a video like right after this, where I try and figure out why I keep buying books I don't read, which is a problem.
I have the same problem.
Well,
I have
hopefully you'll
so
like
many.
this video.
Awesome.
But anyway, what are you up to, Ryan?
Pretty much teaching and stuff like that. I also have a YouTube channel, but it's mostly like either personal projects or class videos and stuff like that. So you can go and check those out. I teach all the semesters, every semester at ASU. You can take our ULC or study hall classes. It's only $25 to sign up, and you only pay if you want to get credit at the end and after you pass the class, which is a great opportunity, super low risk. And our next cohort does, again, start on May 14th. So I'm excited to work with all of you. And the class sort of goes into depth of the video series that Sabrina has hosted is fantastic, but it's very surface. It's very like, this is the fundamental concepts. And then we go into depth of everything that you're able to do with these fundamental concepts and sort of learn all the ins and outs and do a lot of programming. It's super interactive. We try to provide a lot of support and help people through it. And the community this semester has been absolutely amazing. I have loved working with everyone and every minute of everybody helping each other out and stuff like that in the community we've built. It's really fantastic. So we're going to start a new cohort in May, and then I think we offer it every 4.5 weeks or 4.5 months throughout the year, and we'll keep going.
That's amazing. I think that more information on it can be found in the description, as is clearly listed on this banner.
Awesome.
But if that's everything, I thank you for spending this time with me, Ryan. I got to
Oh,
learn
thank
so
you.
much more. This was
Yeah,
exciting. And
it was
thank
very
y'all
fun.
watching for spending that time with us as well. Okay. I
Thank you
don't know
too,
how to
Sabrina.
end this.
Yeah.
We're just here now.
We're just here now. Somebody will press the end button.
I think we're still live. This is thrilling.
Yeah.